might hear me on the radio. Breaker, breaker, 19. Anybody got their ears on?
Hey guys, it's Eric, and tonight I wanted to show off this. This is another great Radio Shack radio. A couple of weeks back, I put out a video on the TRC 474, and I talked about how, other than a sideband radio, that was the best radio at the time that Radio Shack sold. Well, here is the best Radio Shack radio that they sold. This is the TRC 465, and I'll get close in on it here in a second, but I wanted to talk to you about it because it's kind of a really interesting and rare radio. Of all the radios that I've owned, and I've certainly owned a bunch, I have owned dozens, if not hundreds, of Radio Shack radios in my lifetime, as well as many other brands. But when it comes to sideband radios, I've owned exactly 0 Radio Shack sideband capable radios. They just weren't popular sellers, so you didn't see as many. Now, the old Navajo base stations that were around back in the early 80s that had sideband capabilities, those you see used on eBay and sometimes on Marketplace or whatnot, or at Hamfest, but the prices of those are extraordinarily high, so I don't go seeking out anything like that. This one came to me for $25, which was a steal. Any radio these days going for $25 that works, that's a 40 channel, is a pretty good deal. This being a sideband model and one that is in extremely good shape was an incredible deal. I got this at the Raleigh Hamfest about 8 months ago here when I'm filming this thing. I'm just now getting around to filming it, but it's a great little radio that I've had a chance to play with here and make some contacts with, so I thought I'd share it with you. The radio came with everything. Has the original manual in the bag. It even has the codes and rules for CB use at that time. But the TRC 465, and it even came with, of course, the original mic. This is the older squared style mic, and it appears to be in really good shape. That cord's not frayed or anything. And the mic plugs in on the side here. And then it also came with the original mic holder, and it also came with the bracket, so it really was complete. It was very well cared for. The guy that I bought it from said that it was his father's. He and he had taken really good care of it. It was something he used in his ham shack. It was never installed in a mobile, so really nice. Let me get the camera closer in. Let me get the power hooked up. Let me get an antenna hooked up. We'll go through the features and functions. We'll turn it on. We'll scan through the bands and see what we can find. All right, here we are a little closer, and here are some photographs up close of the front and of the back and of the bottom. And this is a bottom firing speaker, and the mic hookup is on the side here. Great. Well, what we have is a really cool radio. Something that is kind of unique about this that you don't see until much, much later in Radio Shack's history with CB radios is the fact that it actually says Radio Shack on it. Most of the time when you saw a Radio Shack radio, it was branded Realistic, and that's what you got. That this one is a TRC 465, but instead of the Realistic sign, you do get a Radio Shack. So that's kind of interesting. Even here, it's called a Radio Shack. It's not considered to be a Realistic, so I find that interesting. Perhaps it's a much later unit than I think it is. Maybe one of you can chime in and tell me, when was this radio made? What era was it? Appearance-wise, it looks extremely like the 474 that I also own. But it is a sideband radio, and it is all blacked out, so it probably is a few years newer. But just how new is it? I'd love to hear that in the comments if anyone knows the answer to that question. Well, let's go through the little knobs and dials and displays, and we'll start with this. It's our on, off, and volume display, followed by our squelch. And then we have RF gain. And then lastly over here, we have a clarifier. Now the big knob, well, that's our channel select. No surprise there. That's the big channel select, right? Over here we have some switches. AM mode, upper sideband and lower sideband on that switch there. We do have A&L and noise blanker combined, and it's just on or off, so you get none or both. And then we have PA mode. So no emergency channel 9 on this model. Again, makes me wonder maybe if it's later than I think it is. But it's a good looking radio, no doubt. Well, let's go ahead and turn it on. The microphone, I told you before, but it's an older style, the square one. I would have to guess, based on who I bought it from, and the fact that it kind of looks like it in the manual, that is the stock radio. That is the original microphone that goes with it. So let me go ahead and fire this one up. And you can see here, I'll turn the volume down for a second, we have a LED bar graph on the bottom that tells us incoming signal, and when we transmit, it gives us outgoing signal as well. So it does not have modulation, it does not have any other LEDs like transmit lights other than those. So that's a difference. So in some ways, the 474, their premium AM only radio, had more features and functions than this one does. But of course, the trade-off is this one has sideband, and that's a big deal. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it up. We already heard somebody talking there, so I'll turn it up and we'll listen. We'll go ahead and try to get a contact here. Break channel for a radio check. Farpoint Farms asking for a radio check. Over. I'm not going to get into it, but I'll go ahead and roll through some of the other channels. All right, let's switch over to sideband. We'll go to lower sideband, and we'll see if we can pick up any contacts in the upper 5 here. CQDX, Farpoint Farms. Farpoint Farms 707, trying for a comeback. I will say it is nearly midnight here on the East Coast. I've been working on customer cars all day. It's probably why I look a little rough on camera. But yeah, so that doesn't surprise me. I'm actually kind of surprised there's any radio going on right now, but I might be picking up West Coast stuff as well. We'll switch back to AM and see if the Super Bowl is happening. Even the Super Bowl is getting quiet. That means it's pretty late at night, my friends. Skip's been rolling really great here with all the solar activity. It has been a great time to be in the hobby, and more people are getting into the hobby. I guess that wraps up tonight's video. I did want to show this thing off. It's unusual to see one of these things in the wild. It's certainly unusual to see one in such great shape. And it's even more unusual to get one at such a great price, so I'm happy to own it. Will I keep it? Probably not. I have the unit in 980 here, and I have the McKinley in the car, and I just can't imagine that I need another sideband radio. I even have the unit in Grant LT inside the house, so I don't really think I'll hang on to this one. I think I'll pass it along. But I'll certainly play with it, make a bunch of contacts, and get to know it a little bit before passing it on. And that's some of the fun of being in the radio game, playing with these things is just half of the experience, getting to see a radio that you lusted over when you were young. I guess that'll do it for tonight, my friends. I'm Eric, and this is Farpoint Farms. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, maybe think about liking and subscribing. And I'll see you next time. Take care.